by 3 legislators, and right next to me is Caleb Amisi, who is the area member of parliament of Saboti, and next to him again is Innocent Obiri, who is a member of parliament from Bobasi, and finally is Omar from Mandera East. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Of course, there's so much that has been happening in the country, especially in the political arena. And of course, the people, the citizenry has voiced their concerns through the elected members of parliament. And this morning, we will be taking, or rather having a look at all of these issues. And foremost, the country has just lost 11 black rhinos in a span of 1 month. And this has actually been taken, or rather caused a storm in the social media. And this is one move that now saw the area member of parliament for Saboti, Caleb Amisi, call for the removal of tourism CS Balala.
Yes, I called for his removal. First of all, thank you for having me in the studio. My voice may be a bit hoarse because of the cold I'm having. Well, I try. But yes, I called for the removal of the CS Balala. He told Kenyans to go to hell, so we are preventing and actually, preventing Kenyans from going to hell. Basically, as a CS holding such an important docket, his level of arrogance that he exhibited when he uttered those words is quite unfortunate and unprecedented. And in a country where we are wooing visitors and tourists, when you hear the topmost person in that docket, talking like that, which tourists will come to this country? We are not showing hospitality even from the top person. And more so, by the way he has demeaned the people of this country as nobody, that he has this don't care attitude that you will do what? I'm appointed by the president, not forgetting that the president is talking about. He also also gets his powers from the people, and the sovereign power comes from the people, and is only delegated to the president through a popular vote. Right. So the people whom he abused and told to go to hell, it is the same very people whom he draws his salary from their taxes. So he owes Kenyans an apology, and not the Committee on Environment. He actually owes the people of the country an apology, or else I'll be moving a motion of no confidence, and thereafter his removal from office immediately.
All right, then. Yes. And of course, yesterday you did have a press conference together with your colleague, this is Jared Okello, calling for this apology from the CS. But at the same time, when he appeared before the Natural Resources Committee, he did apologize, and he put it categorically again, not only to the committee, but to the people.
The CS, when he uttered those words, the unfortunate words, it was in full glare of the public view. I think he called a press conference in Mombasa. One will expect that as a courtesy to the people of this country, he will go ahead and call a press conference, maybe in the steps of Utalii House, and tell Kenyans, sorry for what I uttered yesterday, it was out of this. On top of apologizing for the death of the 11 rhinos, which has been there at the helm, oversaw the death of the precious animals that we are trying to conserve. So he needed not to have waited for a chance like an appearance of before a committee for him to apologize. Somebody may expect probably you called just the same press conference, you utter those words, and penned the apology before the Kenyan people, and not to get an opportunity when you appear in that. Somebody may just say you are just apologizing to the committee members and not to Kenyans. So he needed, and we still have a chance for him to come out publicly and say, yes, I apologized yesterday, but I did not apologize before the people of Kenya whom I told to go to hell.
All right, then.
Yes.
And now maybe Mheshimiwa Obiri again, he did, this is the CS Tourism, he did say the outburst was directed to a few individuals who are malicious, yes, trolling him over the matter. and especially even as a leader, sometimes you come by these kind of high-pressure jobs. So maybe what is your take? What is the best approach, bearing in mind a multi-agency, even as we speak, is trying to handle and unravel the death of these 10 black rhinos?
Thank you. I think the unfortunate thing, he made these comments to the whole country. So you cannot say you directed it to individual people, because if you wanted to, then you would have looked for a channel of communication which goes directly to those people. So it went to the whole country. And I mean, it was meant, it was understood by the country that it was meant for everybody in Kenya. So he takes responsibility to the people of Kenya. And to the extent that he's doing investigation, which is a good thing, he owes an apology to the country.
All right then, and maybe now to you, Honorable Malim, this is coming at a time when the country is facing so much loss when it comes to the wildlife sector, and this in general is affecting the tourism industry. Is the Kenya Wildlife Service to blame?
First of all, thank you very much. I don't agree with my colleagues in terms of the comments made by the CS. I'm not defending per se. However, I think what you just mentioned is that as a leader, sometimes you're posed with serious pressure in terms of the job you're holding. And I think Balala was not speaking to Kenyans. He was specifically talking to specific persons who might have bothered him in one way or the other in terms of him resigning or not resigning. The death of the rhinos is regrettable, and I think we must, KWS must up the game and come up with better ways of dealing with issues. I saw Balala on TV, apologizing on the comments that he made that they were regrettable. Of course, he said it on the Committee of Environment, and the committee is an extension of the House, and they represent Kenyans. And I think if he had said that he never meant what he did say, and as a human being we have emotions, for me I think let's not be very reactive in terms of the comments we make, not only for Balala but for all leaders. Let's be precautionary in terms of addressing issues that are pertinent to the lives of Kenyans.
All right then, and of course maybe while you're still at that topic, we have seen so many political leaders taken or rather charged with various charges pertaining to incitement, to words that could actually cause divisive reactions from Kenyans. And I don't know what exactly can be done, especially by the leaders, maybe to curb this.
Yeah, and I think one of my pronouncement yesterday, it is one step towards curbing all these unprecedented, cases of leaders thinking that they own the offices that they hold, and not respecting the people who put in that office. As a member of parliament, if I come and abuse the people who elected me, it clearly shows that you do not respect the people who gave you that post. So it is imperative that as much as people defend the minister, but we must we must be very keen not to propagate the same and look like it is the order of the day that somebody can just come, utter whatever words he has, whatever, under whatever circumstances, and you expect the following day I'll just apologize. Even though he did apologize to the Committee of Environment. Remember, he said those words the previous day. And after realizing what you've said is going to be a very callous statement and an arrogance, it has displayed you as an arrogant person, and you think is contrary to your inner side, you need to apologize immediately. You just write a statement to the media houses. You don't need to wait until the committee calls you.
All right.
You write a statement immediately and say, for the sake of my office I hold, I urge the people of Kenya to forgive me. I said these words in such a... So we need to inculcate discipline in our leadership, and it will not leave any statements that are said by very senior people we respect. We respect Balala. He has served in this country in many portfolios. So it's not that we are saying he's a bad leader, but we say we need to inculcate values in our leadership that can be emulated by the people who are looking upon us as leaders.
And so, of course, this is in observation of Chapter 6 when it comes to integrity of elected leaders.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the matter at hand, or rather what brought about these whole maybe utterances, was the issue of the loss of 10 black rhinos, now 11, after the loss of one more by suspected poachers in Lake Nakuru National Park. So maybe Mheshimiwa Obiri, again to the question I had asked Mandera East Member of Parliament. Is the Kenya Wildlife Service failing the nation?
Thank you. You know, we are losing rhinos not only in Kenya but the whole world in large numbers. In fact, I think one type of rhino is now extinct. We don't have a similar one in the whole world. So it calls upon everybody who realize that as a fact to do more than ordinary duty to protect them. So in my view, the amount of protection we have been giving to the rhinos is no good, because if the poachers can come to Lake Nakuru and kill so many rhinos, which are known to be rare, not just for tourism but even for humanity, that the future generation now will not have a chance to know what a rhino was if we let them get extinct. I think the amount of protection we are giving them is not adequate. And Kenya Wildlife Service can do better to protect the rhinos so that we don't have this scenario which we are facing now, the scenario that they will be extinct, all the rhinos in the near future.
All right, then, of course, you've used the scenario right now where KWS could do better.
Yes.
And, of course, again, Honorable Malin yesterday, the CS Tourism did say that indeed leadership wrangles were to blame for maybe the leniency we're seeing in terms of operations from the Kenya Wildlife Service. And only this would come out after he sat before the Natural Resources Committee. The question is, as an oversight body, you know, members of parliament being the overseeing authorities, is there more that you can do as members of parliament, maybe to address issues before they can really, you know, unravel into different issues?
I think I agree with my colleague honorable member that we need to do more in terms of wildlife conservation. The minister did say that there have been internal wrangles. Not only KWS. What I'm aware is that many parastatals are facing a lot of wrangles, you know, today, and reason being, many parastatals do not have active, you know, boards or directors, and you know, and KWS is one of it. When this happened, there's no active board members for KWS, and I think that's a failure itself. And I think the government must be able to put up structures that are necessary for efficient running of any parastatal, not only on KWS. If the board of directors were in place, all managements were in place, and everybody does what he's supposed to be doing, then I think that will have been, you know, that would not have happened. You know, the dying and, you know, the relocation, the process, the way it was done, I think it will have been done better. And these structures must be in place in terms of who is supposed to be appointed who. I think the head of state must be able to appoint, you know, chairman and the board of directors for all parastatals for efficient service delivery to Kenyans.
All right, then, and of course, like we said, this is a crosstalk, and so much has been happening in the political arena, and all these members of parliament have been actively involved in calling for reforms in various sectors. We've been addressing the loss of 11 rhinos now in a span of 1 month in the country, and there is still another pertinent matter in the current affairs, and this is on matters to do with mining, and this is in Bobasi constituency, where lives were lost during this exercise. And again, Mheshimiwa Obiri have been very passionate when it comes to the regulation of the mining sector. So maybe if you can start this conversation and tell us what is ailing the industry.
I'll talk specifically on the problem in Bobasi. At a place called Nyamunema, at the tip of Bobasi, is a large rock. You'll also note that Kisii, where Bobasi is one of the most densely populated areas of this country. So the land ownership is in the tune of maybe 1 acre or less. So you get people very close one by the other. Now the trouble is, somebody has bought that rock and is using explosives to break the rock so they can carry it away and take it for crushing. Now explosives, the concept of explosive is a concept you will have in making bombs. So when they are exploding, they shake the whole area. First of all, they drill the rock, they put in chemicals, then they explode them. So they shake the rock, there is a lot of smoke going to the air, and there's a lot of shaking in the whole area. Houses have been cracking, people are injured. There was a stampede at the nearest secondary school, and students had to be taken to hospital, and it's all bad. Now there is a river in between. Because of the shaking of the rocks and the soil, it has become red. Smoke is sent up to the air, and this smoke obviously contains the chemicals which are used in exploding, and you know, people breathe them. And I have got, initially when it started, I didn't know, so they called me after a little while. When I went there, one of the other things you'll notice is that they have created a big gorge into the rock. You go in, is a big gorge down into the ground. So those are all environmental and health issues to the people. I have voiced it, I have reported it, and last weekend I went there with 8 legislators. And you know, to sensitize the matter, what surprises me most is that similar issues happening, like what happened in Waraka, in fact, which are smaller than these, the mines are closed for the health of the people. But in this case, it's been running from around July last year. I am aware that all laws in the world do not allow blasting within residential areas.
All right, then.
I'll add something, that the nearest house to the mine is less than 10 meters from there. So when you explode using explosives and the people are living 10 meters away, you can be sure it will affect them, it will injure them. In fact, it is thought that the first blast which happened, a lady who lived across the road, who was 1 or 3 years old, lost her life.
Okay, all right then. Now, Mheshimiwa Maalim, we have now talked about a couple of issues after, you know, coming from this mining practice. Health hazards, you know, environmental degradation. And of course, this comes about when it comes to natural resources and the harvesting of these resources, not only in mining, probably even when you come into the management of maybe, say, petroleum, like in the areas of Turkana County. So how can the balance be struck between the residents benefiting from these, but the right policies being achieved as well?
I think I'll say there's a one body that's sleeping on the job, and Kenyans must know this, and that's called NEMA, Natural Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, which is supposed to be able to regulate mining, environmental issues, and what the honorable member has said is a replica of what's happening all over the country. Not only issue of Bobasi, but not mining, even issue of quarries. People, you know, trying to get building stones from Mandera to Bobasi and other parts of the country. Miners will create gorges, will create, on the line of mining, they make a lot of gorges. They don't do refilling, and many people lose their lives in terms of falling into those big gorges. Animals have been lost. Environmental emissions on issues like what the honorable member has said, people using explosives to bring out those materials. And I think the people who are supposed to be managing this, to regulate, to make sure that these issues are done in a manner that is friendly, is NEMA. And for me, I would say that NEMA must be able to up their games, and they must be able to come up with policies on how best the cost-benefit analysis of each of these activities. And they should be able to tell Kenyans why what is happening in Bobasi, in Mandera, in Mombasa, Voi, many people are losing their lives, and I think it is the prerogative authority of NEMA to make sure that there's a systematic way of dealing with these issues.
All right, and of course that is on the side of the bodies charged with this responsibility. But now, Mheshimiwa Amisi, if you could tell us, what do you think, if there is a responsibility from the locals in management of such, trades? What is their responsibility?
The local, first I want to sympathize with my colleague, because it affects him directly as a local member of parliament. And something peculiar you may have realized in this industry called mining. We have a whole ministry in charge of mining. And you'll ask yourself, are we as a country ever gotten, a reflection of our proceeds from mining, even in our national budget? And yet we have delegated a whole ministry in charge of it. But where is mining even in our national budget that we've received this revenue from mining activities? Where is it? We've never received an income from mining. So that tells you there is a gap. There is a loophole in this industry, and it's a sleeping giant. I mean, we are blessed with natural resources as a country, and yet we are being suffocated by loans from China and the rest of the Western Western countries. So I think without even blaming the locals, because of course we are, as much as we are the locals, we are bound by the rules and regulations, by the bodies that are mandated to do their various work, NEMA included, what Mheshimiwa has mentioned. So there is a loophole that I think us as legislators, we must really pursue it even from our legislative assembly. Matters mining in this country has been dormant, and we need actually to revive that industry and look at the whole, as a whole. We have patches of stones all over this country. You go even to Migori, you go to towards Siaya, you go to Kambani, you'll find it is just a sleeping giant, this sector called mining. And it is now incumbent upon the regulatory bodies to have a national conversation around the whole issue of mining, regulate it, and curb the expected losses, because of course there are Kenyans who live around any mining whatever patches in this country, and we need to know how do we guard loss of life like what we have experienced there, and how do we even regulate the people who come to do the mining, and so that they are working within the regulatory framework. So it is not even about the locals, it is about the bodies that are mandated to do the work and regulate. And this whole industry of mining must be relooked at. Otherwise, it's just something that we've hidden somewhere, that we have mining in this country. And yet there is no income, there's no revenue. It has not been featured in our national budget.
Of course, you do raise such pertinent issues, and it's on this matter now again to you, Mheshimiwa Obiri. I understand that locals in Bobasi would sell a 10-kilogram bucket of maybe, say, ballast for only 10 shillings.
Yes.
And maybe the casual laborer will be paid 300 shillings.
Yes.
And maybe the contractor 10,000 shillings?
Yes.
Thereabout.
Yes.
Now, maybe relating to what Mheshimiwa Amisi here says is about the proceeds from this industry. Let's not even go first to the national level. Let's even begin from the locals.
Yes.
10 shillings for a bucket.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
Before we go there, I want to add on what the question you asked about the locals. You see, in this country and the whole world, there are things which can be done by the locals, and there are things which cannot be done by the locals, and therefore are left to the government. When it comes to regulating on how mining is done, the locals do not have the capacity to regulate. That is purely left to the government. So if something goes wrong on the mining industry, it is purely the government, because there's nothing the locals can do. In the case of what you have mentioned...
Just a moment. When it comes to the locals again and their contribution about maybe the management of this issue,
yes.
Are they totally helpless, or do they have maybe like an avenue where they could report these matters to leaders, they could report these matters to the ministry,
yes.
like a helpline,
yes.
or maybe, almost like community policing,
yes.
where
yes.
they say, you know what, they use explosives,
yes.
and these explosives are now causing cracks and stampedes
yes.
in nearby schools.
Yes. Yes.
Are they totally helpless? Do they have any options?
The option they have is what you have just stated. And I want to tell you that right from the first explosive which happened last year around August, September, the locals went to the administration. They went to the commissioner's office, they went to the DCIO, they went everywhere. They have made reports. One of the affected buildings is a church, a 70-day church, Nyamonema 70-day church, and adjacent schools. Those are public institutions. The heads of those institutions have written reports, big detailed reports, which are taken. They have gone there in large numbers. The only thing, I think the people of Bobasi have been good, they have not been violent. But they have gone there, they have made all those reports. Now, what happened in the last incident, the rock is very large. So at one end, the company is mining, but the same rock is on, like maybe 100 or 200 meters that side. So before this company started mining, the locals who are mining this small one, they chip, and this is what you said. They mine the rock, and then they sell in small portions for 10 bob or something. Really something small. So because of the shaking, the rock has now cracked. So when they went to the other side, now trying to do what they've always done, because the rock is now loose, it fell on them and killed 2 young men who are trying to do what they have always done. And this is a direct result of the blasting which is being done. They get very little money. But the rock which is actually being mined is taken away elsewhere. So we don't know how much is
the proceeds.
The proceeds we don't know. One thing I can tell you is that the locals do not benefit in any way. They have no benefit from what is done.
All right. Mheshimiwa Malim, again, of course, we're talking about the Big Four agenda, and we're also talking about manufacturing and value addition. And in this case, probably there is an avenue here for value addition from mining products. What can be done maybe in this industry so that a person who probably was earning 10 shillings from a bucket, they could maybe earn 200, 100, according to what is the market value?
First of all, let me add on what the honorable member has said. I think mining has is such a way that it has not been exploited per se. Few people possess licenses for doing mining, and members of the public are helpless to say so in terms of benefiting from mining. And I think the Ministry of Mining and the government must be able to come up with better ways of making this industry thrive in Kenya. We have all that potential in terms of making sure that we make use of the resources that we have. First of all, the issue of regulation in terms of who is supposed to do mining must be looked into, because very few scrupulous miners are having licenses, and that's what they are doing in Bobasi and other parts of the country. And I think the government must look into who are these miners that we have in Kenya, and how are they benefiting the local communities? How are they benefiting the country? How are they, adding up value, or how are they adding in the economy of the country? And I think that is, it must be done at ministry level, at government level. And once that is done, then we come up with mechanisms of making sure that communities benefit. For example, what has happened, the oil discovery in Turkana and these kind of things. The people of Turkana were, came up and said, how are we benefiting from this? And I think right now they have reached amicable agreement how best this can be shared. And I think that must trickle down to other other minerals that we have, especially for gold and what all the other precious stones that we have. The same must be done in all over the country.
All right then, and maybe even as we wind up on this topic now, maybe Mheshimiwa Amisi, if you can tell us what then is the danger if this is not regulated. We've actually seen even from Turkana there's some sort of a blockade sometimes in the transfer of the crude oil, because they feel like we are yet to benefit from this, right? So what is the danger?
Yeah, the danger is that first there'll be anarchy in the mining sector, where everybody is for himself. In failure to have regulations, basically we'll have some unscrupulous business people thriving. They are actually unscrupulous people thrives on lack of regulations, whereby people just go, and once we create such an environment, definitely the locals suffer, because they are going to be you know, they'll not harvest so much out of it. They'll not get what is clearly theirs. Number two, we may also have, you know, lack of fine, you know, products from the industry. Because when people just go there without any regulation, they basically do not even care about the product and the fineness of what they're supposed to do, take to the market. And therefore, you even untapped, you'll have untapped potential because you are basically not getting to the bottom of the fine mines that the country has. So whatever goes outside there, we may think Kenyans do not have the fine products that we need, and yet we do have, but it's the unscrupulous business people who have thrived to lack of regulation. And the locals may not benefit as much, and also the dangers to the locals, because as you see, Mheshimiwa saying, people are dying. Because those people do not care about their lives. And when the government has regulated, probably the government will regulate and say the locals either relocated they are compensated by the government. But in this case, when his constituents die, nobody cares. Only maybe the member of parliament who will be called for the funerals are around, and the case ends there. But it needs to be compensated by the people who caused the death and the other injuries around. So the dangers are so much in that sector if it's not regulated.
Okay, and of course, Mheshimiwa, you've been very passionate about this matter, so much that we also saw you being called or charged with a few charges pertaining to this matter. And now because this conversation, at least in this sitting, squarely lies on you, then what do you rather, what is your call on the government in terms of regulation, well apart from licensing? What else?
One of the things is that the people at the ground must benefit from any mining which is done there. That's number one. Then number two, there must be protection to life. If I wouldn't say there's anything wrong in mining that rock. The method of mining must protect the people. The people at the ground must benefit from it. In this case, the people are not benefiting at all. There is no benefit. In fact, their environment is being destroyed, meaning they are actually losing. Their property is being destroyed, their houses. The last blast which happened about a month ago, the iron sheets of houses around in about a kilometer or two were blown off, and the contractor went around with iron sheets in a pickup trying to return the iron sheets. But you see, there is so much more than just the iron sheets. There's a trauma on the people. The blast is so loud, it makes some people literally blind.
Right.
So there must be a regulation. If it was to be done, the other way is to remove those people from there when the blasting is being done, and then they are returned. But you see, the miner does not want to do it because that will mean he incurs costs, and they don't want to incur costs. They want to benefit as much as they can. And therefore, the whole burden is left on the people who are not benefiting and who are in fact suffering. It is the government's responsibility. In fact, for the moment, the best thing is to shut that mine and make sure all the issues have been regulated, and even find out how a license to blast was issued for a densely populated area like Bobasi.
All right, such a sensitive matter, right? And I do believe that conversation does not end here. And well, I believe this is the state broadcast, and of course we're hoping this information is reaching to all the relevant authorities as well as the citizenry. And now to another very important matter. This is a motion that was tabled in Parliament by the Member of Parliament for Mandera East, and he's right here with us. Honorable Maalim, you're calling for the withdrawal of the Kenya Defense Forces from Somalia. This is the Linda Nchi operation. You say it has failed. It's better if they are withdrawn.
First of all, it's not a motion. It's a petition by the people of Mandera East, and I presented it on their behalf. KDF moved to Somalia in 2011, and the operation was codenamed Linda Nchi, which meant that terror incidents have been happening in Kenya, and KDF went to Somalia to get Al-Shabaab in Somalia. 8 years down the line, we have sustained terror attacks in Kenya. So it beats logic that we have over thousands of our forces in Somalia, the border is so porous from border point 1 to Kiunga in Lamu. These fellas are coming to Kenya, and we have our forces in the interior of Somalia. So for the people of Mandera and myself, we don't see any logic why we should have our forces in Kismayu, while we need them in Mandera border point 1, Kiunga, Holoko in Garissa, in Wajir. We need them to patrol our borders. And that's what we are saying. We are saying there's no value for money. Many officers lost their lives in the line of duty. You know what has happened in the most recent in Somalia on KDF. Many families are orphaned and widowed as a result of those kinds of attacks in Somalia. Right. So what we are saying is that for Kenya to be secure, our borders must be secured. Article 241 of the Constitution gives KDF the primary mandate to protect the territorial integrity of our nation. And by them coming to the border from Kiunga, Wajir, Garissa, and Mandera, then we are sure of controlled movement of these people into our country. And that's why we are asking for the withdrawal of this KDF from Kismayo, wherever they are in the interior of Somalia, and coming to the border. To the porous borders, as you call them.
Now, maybe Mheshimiwa Amisi, what is your take on this matter? For the withdrawal or not?
The KDF should be withdrawn. In fact, like yesterday, it gives an impression that we are using our taxpayers' money to protect the people of Somalia rather than protect Kenyans. Because